As you recall from the prior lesson, finding the right problem to solve is critical for the success of your product. If you aren't focusing on the right problems, your product will fail. This is something that both big and small companies struggle with. You'll have to work through a lot of constraints and trade-offs to get this right. So how do you figure out what problem to solve? Well, there's a lot of different ways that you can get signal. Let's start with research. Research is one of the things that I find the most insightful. There's lots of different types of research that you can do. For example, market research is helpful in understanding the current space. What products or related products already exist? What's the competition like? What are the trends? User research is also super critical here, and there's lots of different forms of user research that can take place, such as ethnographies, interviews, and focus groups, just to name a few. But at the end of the day, it's super important to go out and talk to users. This really is the best way to understand their needs and the problems that they're running into. In the case where you might already have an existing product and you're looking for a follow-on product, you already have some additional data that you can look at. You can look at how your current product is being used or not being used, and this will give you an understanding of problems that users might be running into with your current product and potentially ideas for new features. You also can look at support data. Again, this will give you a sense for the type of issues that your users are running into. Fixing these issues will reduce bad experiences for customers, and it will also reduce the amount of money that the company spends on providing support. And lastly, you can think about efficiency gains. These are things that will allow you to scale and provide more value over time. For example, if there's a manual process your engineering team has to do, if you automate that process, it frees up more bandwidth for the team to solve new problems. There are a few other challenges as well. At the end of the day, time is limited. There's only 24 hours in a day, and you have a limited number of people on your team. It's just not physically possible to solve every single problem. Another thing to keep in mind is that not all problems have the same impact. Solving some problems will have tremendous impact, whereas other problems might have almost negligible impact. Given limited time and differing levels of impact, not every problem is worth solving. You want to make sure to maximize the impact of you and your team's time. Speaking of impact, it's not just about solving problems for the user. It's also important to keep business goals in mind. If products aren't helping to meet business goals, they ultimately won't survive long term. This could mean that your product gets killed, or even worse, that your company goes out of business. Business goals can take a lot of different forms, like increasing revenue, increasing number of users, increasing user engagement, decreasing costs, and decreasing churn, just to name a few. These will likely come up when you build a business case. As you start understanding business goals and evaluating problems, you want to look for overlap between these two. This is where you'll find viable product opportunities. There's a quote from Sam Altman of Y Combinator that sums this up nicely. You can change everything in your startup except the market. So spend a lot of time up front to make sure that you've thought through your market. You can have the smartest, most talented people on your team, and you could be building amazing pieces of technology. But if your product doesn't solve a problem that resonates with the market, none of that will matter.